Hey there, I'm Abel Contreras. So let's talk about film. More specifically, let's talk about short films. They're a format that's been around since the beginning of cinema, yet over the past few decades the narrative short has kind of been underappreciated, as it's either seen as merely a prototype or add-on to a feature film, or is instead almost completely overshadowed by similar formats like music videos and online content. The reason I think this is so sad is because as time's gone by, it seems like we've forgotten what exactly besides length makes a short film so different from a feature, as well as how one goes about making a well-made short film.
Really, nigga?
However, dear viewer, you need not worry, as I, Abel, the self-proclaimed greatest being in the universe, am here to shed some light on what components are used to make a short film work. Now I know this may seem like a really big task, but I mean you only need to know like 2 or 3 major things, so I don't know, it shouldn't be that hard. Anywho, I'll stop stalling this intro and finally get around to breaking this whole short thing down. So see you in like, 2 seconds? Boom.
Ready? Go!
Now I come from the world of film school and student films, and often one of the biggest missed opportunities among most student filmmakers, me included, is the characters. It's not that they're flat or underdeveloped or anything, rather it's the opposite. They're overdeveloped. Yes, I know we all learned about the importance of the character arc and how a protagonist should be a 3-dimensional person and start out as one character in the beginning and by the end of it be a somewhat different character who's learned something new about friendship or whatever. It's just the thing about character arcs though, is that they take time. And when you've only got 40 minutes or less, your audience barely even has enough to get acquainted with the protagonist, let alone see how they've grown as a vividly complex character. So instead, I think you should be focusing on making sure your characters are easily defined and understandable. What I mean by that is that an audience should be able to understand who that character is and what they're all about almost immediately. For example, are they bored and lonely? Well, just show us right away. Maybe they're a bit of a pompous asshole, so why not just introduce them like that?
It's not so much that what you've written is contemptibly bad. It's almost a given. What surprises me is that you're able to find your way here every week without assistance. Because on my way here today, I actually had a thought. I realized that when the bulk of you fail as writers, only then will you really be able to understand the characters you now blithely paint with these broad, smug strokes.
How about weak and pathetic, yet yearning for more? Hell, man, just straight up tell us.
I am a nameless peon, weak and frail, like a little girl. For many years I have blown like a leaf in the winds of time and things. My goal? To become the hugest of huge. It hasn't worked out so far.
You know, I think one of the biggest advantages of the short film is how much people are willing to just accept that there doesn't need to be any character complexity or growth, because any real significant change would just feel cheap or undeserving, because, you know, it happened in like 10 minutes. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a character grow. There have been plenty of filmmakers out there who found a number of different and clever ways to give their characters little mini arcs that serve the same purpose. However, I am gonna say that what all those shorts have in common is that they keep their growth very slight and very simple. If you're still not convinced, then think of it like this. In a feature, we're able to see a character go through their internal journey. In a short, we get something more akin to a snapshot of that journey. It's a little different, but it's a method that works well in complementing the usual structure of a short. Speaking of structure, So I get that when we're finally able to make our short film, we kinda just wanna flex a bit and show off how smart, cool, and deep we all are by making that super awesome sci-fi crime thriller about the philosophical nature of AI technology, or that hella insightful and emotional tale about the rise and fall of a romantic relationship that's so heartwarming yet tragic, and, of course, everyone's favorite, the meta movie.
Chris, well, we do exist, but we don't. What? Actors, man, we're just being played by actors.
Now, these kinds of stories are fine. I mean, anything can be good as long as it's done right. However, the issue I have with these kinds of layered and nuanced stories is that they're usually just feature films that have been squished down to fit a short film time length. That wouldn't really be an issue if it wasn't for the fact that these kinds of stories tend to inherently be a bit cluttered and loose in their unity. What I mean by that is they tend to have elements that diverge away from the core narrative of the focus. To put it in layman's terms, they just tend to have a lot of things like subplots, side characters, non sequiturs, and other things that aren't really directly contributing to the main story. In a feature film, that kind of stuff is almost necessary, and so certain kinds of stories have been built to fit that model. But what the short film has over the feature is that they can focus on a single, economically unified structure. Why that's a big deal is because instead of having to juggle all these character motivations and side filler, a short can just focus on one specific story with one specific motivation and one specific goal. Once again, this doesn't mean that you can't try and add something like subplots. I mean, even some of the longer shorts dabble with those. But what you have here is an opportunity to make a very concise and direct type of story that you usually wouldn't be able to make with a feature. So why not utilize it? Alright, one more thing and then I'll shut up. Alright, I'll be honest here and say this is more of a personal preference rather than a concept I've learned. But I really believe that there's one more thing you need to take into consideration, and that's the marvel of the whole thing. Show us something we've never seen before, something that'll astound us. It doesn't have to be some big fancy effect or some life-changing visuals. It can be something as simple as a car speeding through a city, or a funny little dance, or just a neat little camera trick. Whatever it is, just make it interesting and make it yourself. A short film is one of the best things a filmmaker can make early on, not because it's some training ground for a feature like most people see it as, but because creatively, it's a low-risk, high-reward gamble. A short can present new methods, techniques, ideas, and other things in a way that features just can't, because they don't have to worry about keeping people's attention for over 90 minutes. Because of this, shorts have always been a breeding ground for some of the most interesting and unique pieces of cinema. So please, for my sake, and for the sake of all cinema, go out there and make a film that can only be made as a short, because despite their length, their role in cinema is pretty damn massive. I didn't even mean to write that one.
When you're off tonight.